Good morning, everyone. My name is Spencer from the Spencer Truth Channel, here to help you appreciate the ability of the body to heal itself and to be restored to youth, vitality, and full functionality. So, as I mentioned before, some of the things in my introduction, some of the things I'll be talking about today, I wanted to focus on how becoming a vegan will help to improve your health. So about 10 years ago, I was not vegan. I ate everything. My health was poor. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I had eczema, sort of a skin condition that seemed to only affect me in the summertime. During the summer, in most cases, the sun is hot. You start to tan. And instead of me getting a completely full tan on my face, what actually happened is that only certain areas of my face were darkened, so the lighter areas appeared to be spots. And my face would get rather dry, sometimes a little flaky, but this had been existing since I was a child, maybe 8 or 9 is as far back I can remember. But it was rather annoying, and it was so bad that as I got older, I had inherited the nickname Patches. And of course, this was very disheartening because it seemed that all the other teenagers didn't have these same issues with their skin. And on top of that, I had teenage acne. So you could imagine life wasn't great. So that was a few. Oh, also I had to admit my weight. I was rather heavy. It seemed like that I can only keep my weight um, under control, I would say, as long as I was going to the gym. Despite the amount of food that I ate, the big amounts of food I ate, I wasn't convinced that it was the food that was causing my weight gain. And ultimately, I just couldn't get the weight off. It seemed like nothing I would do seemed to work. I was always hungry. And in retrospect, the food that I ate was of poor quality. So those were just a few things I was battling with. So I went to the doctor about 10, 11 years ago. He told me I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I told him about the eczema. There was nothing he can do about it. Uh, recommended I lose weight. That's the first thing they do when you walk in the door. It's like their way of opening up the conversation and giving you that whole list of things that you need to do. The other thing, I was a drinker, so that possibly couldn't have helped the situation. So once he told me I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, he wanted to control those issues by giving me prescription drugs. At the time, I was 36. There was no way. There was no way in my mind. It did not make sense for a 36-year-old to be on prescription drugs, but I knew I had to do something to improve my health. At the time, I felt sluggish. Um, the weight I felt weighed down, and it felt like I was getting bigger and bigger. And I would look in the mirror, and I just felt like I look old. Uh, for a 36-year-old, I felt like I should not have seen the signs of aging that I was seeing. So those were other things I was combating with. So I walked out of his office. I said, no, I'm not taking the prescription drugs. I'm going to figure out another way. I'll see you next appointment. So I became a vegetarian, and I did vegetarianism for probably about, I guess I did it for about 3 or 4 years. I ate everything with exception to meat and seafood. Those are the only things I would omit from my diet. I can't really say that I saw any substantial difference. Even when thinking back, nothing noticeable. Um, so I continue to search and search and look for other healthier options, not realizing that despite omitting the meat and the seafood, that I still ate a lot of what I considered garbage. So I fast forward a little bit. So I'm watching a video on YouTube about food, and all of a sudden the video comes up entitled, "If Slaughterhouses Had Glass Walls, We'd All Be Vegetarians." So me already being a vegetarian and not eating animal already, it really piqued my curiosity to hear what more information could there be. But one thing stuck out in my mind. I watched the way that the animals were being killed and processed for food, and it was horribly inhumane, even for the slaughtering, for the killing of animals. It was absolutely beyond me as to this process that was going on. But the thing that really resonated with me is the fact that if this is the way our food is being treated before it gets to the store and to our tables, once we eat it, how is it that it could possibly have ill effects on our bodies? And that was my concern. So I continued to ponder on that, but still not really knowing of a better way of eating. I was already omitting the meat. A suggested video came up, as YouTube will do, and it had a title about veganism. I said, I said, I've heard of vegans. I even spoke with a vegan, and the young lady said that she didn't eat dairy, and that was all the information I got. So that was all I knew. So I really wanted to know, what did they have to say about vegans, and how could it make a difference in my life? So I watched the video, and it talked about what vegans did not eat. And for those of you who may not know, veganism simply means that persons who eat foods that do not come from any animal sources, do not originate from animal sources. I give an example. Let's say you wanted to make one of your favorite dishes, all-time great. I still love it, though I don't eat it anymore. Mac and cheese. Macaroni and cheese. Cheese is one of the secondary, most important ingredients in the recipe. Well, in most cases, milk is one of the ingredients that's used to make cheese. So a vegan would not eat cheese if it was produced from milk. So that's one example. Another thing, I know a lot of families that cook vegetables, a lot of people that make vegetables with their dinners. Sometimes you like to add meat, pork, beef, something to give it flavor. My mother-in-law makes vegetables, and she loves to put meat in it, and she always wants me to eat. So I said, want me to eat the vegetables, and she'll say, well, there's nothing in it. I just used the meat to flavor it, but I took it out. Well, the point is that the meat was in it, and that particular dish had animal product in it. So that's the gist. So with that, after watching the video that one particular night, immediately after the video went over, my mind was made over that veganism was going to be the way that I go. I cold turkey went vegan overnight. Still not knowing how it was going to affect my body, what it was going to do, because at the time I really didn't know much about how the human body worked. So, folks, I was absolutely in for a ride that I'll never forget, and this is what has compelled me to share some of my experiences. So 1 year after being vegan, so as a vegan, I think I ate fresh fruits at the time. I would make vegan dishes, like the mock meats, the stuff that looks like chicken or looks like steak, look like beef, but it's not, and mix it with some vegetables. And at the time, I was still cooking my food. So those are, sometimes I would eat pastas. I would make my own version of the mac and cheese because there is vegan cheese. So I had many options, and it was really fun to know that I had a better way of eating. So with that said, 1 year after becoming vegan, I was in a car accident. A gentleman rear-ended me from the back. I went to the doctors so that for precautionary measures to make sure that there was no cranial damage. Because when you hit your head, sometimes it's hard to tell. You don't always see the repercussions right away. So I went to the doctor. Mind you, just 1 year before, my blood pressure was 145 over 95. So the gentleman took my blood pressure, as they always do. The first thing, he took the blood pressure, and after he was done, he didn't make any comments, any gestures. He just took it, and that was that. So with a lack of expression, on his face, I was curious to know. I asked, what was my blood pressure? And he said 119 over 65. I said, one what? He said 119 over 65. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, why? What's wrong? I said, well, just last year, it was 145. I said, my primary care physician wanted to put me on blood pressure pills and also cholesterol. And he said, well, what did you do different? I said, I changed my diet. I became vegan. He said, well, good. But his initial answer, he thought that I was controlling it by, you named it, prescription drugs, because often many people do. And that's a whole nother story we'll talk about another video, prescription drugs. Anyway, So at that very moment, I was convinced that not only was veganism the way for me to go, but it was ultimately the way to restore your health. And then I was convinced, unlike before, that the poor conditioning, the I guess the poor functionality of my body, the health issues, was as a result of the food, because that was the only thing that I changed. At that point, I wasn't even exercising. And by the way, I forgot to mention that one thing that did happen during the vegetarian period, I had lost about 100 pounds. And at that point, that was because I decided to change the portions that I was eating along with the foods. So I lost 100 pounds as a vegetarian, but now as a vegan, I've been able to keep the weight off, but also improve other areas. So once I realized that my blood pressure had gone down as a result of veganism, I absolutely knew that the high cholesterol was gone. Now, high cholesterol, for those of us that may not know, the doctors often tell you that there's two types of cholesterol. There's the good and there's the bad. Now, your experience may be different from mine, but I have never had a doctor explain what the two sources are and why one is bad and why the other is good. They've never explained it. So I will if you don't know. So first of all, our kidneys. Cholesterol is already being produced within our own body. It's something needed. When you have, that is the good cholesterol because it is your own. The bad cholesterol is the cholesterol that you take in when you eat your food sources, which is probably going to be another, or not another, but it's going to be an animal because they have organs as well. So the bad cholesterol is from the animal sources and the good is from you. So when you're taking something into the body that your own body is already producing, you're going to have an elevated level. They often call that your bad cholesterol. Folks, very, very, very simple. So I knew the cholesterol had to be gone if my high blood pressure was gone. But the other thing, the eczema that I had been battling since my single digits, about 8 or 9 years old, after 1 year, it was gone. I said to my wife, I said, hey, you notice I don't get those spots on my face anymore? And she said, you know what? You're right. You don't. So right there, I had 3 proofs right before my eyes that veganism was the best way to go. And this is why I've maintained this diet for 7.5 years, because it began to not only help me to improve other things, toenail fungus. Not ashamed to admit it, a lot of us don't like to talk about it, but I was an athlete back in my younger years and walked around the showers barefoot. And you know what happens? Your feet, you're walking on top of that water. Other people have bacteria and what have you, and it could transfer among other things. But I had toenail fungus. My toenails began to restore to normalcy as a result of my vegan diet. So, and also, I'm going to get more into why, but it wasn't just the food. Now that I understand more about the body, it wasn't just the food that helped that process along. That was something else, and I'll talk about that more because that's a whole nother topic. But the food, changing my diet did help. It was a better quality. So my toenails began to improve. My skin definitely improved. The other thing, I started to notice that my gray hairs, I had some gray hairs that started to return to black. See, folks, many of these conditions that we experience are actually not health issues, they're not diseases, they're symptoms, they're warning signs that we are doing something or taking in something, eating something, drinking something that the body simply doesn't like, doesn't want, and in most cases, it doesn't know what to do with it. So when these things come about, it just kind of pushes it aside and it remains in the body for years. And as we continue to indulge, well, the body at some point says, because the body is dynamic, it changes with what we do. It realizes that you're going to continue this habit. And it just keeps letting it store and letting it store. And before we know it, we have what we call health problems. And then what do? We naturally go to the doctors, we give them the symptoms, they classify that symptom as a disease, and then give you a pill for it. Now you have to contend with the side effects that you're going to get from the pills. It's almost inevitable. So again, I don't want to get off topic. So after 7.5 years of being vegan, I've absolutely seen it as the best way to go. And of course, folks, it is an adjustment. It gets to be a little difficult at times. Um, there was another thing that I did that I thought was very necessary. Once I became a vegan and I started researching the ingredients, I realized that the best way for me to maintain my vegan diet is if I had substantial control. By that I mean eating in restaurants. I omitted that from my diet immediately also. I had stopped eating in all restaurants. The reason why I did that, because all of the food in the restaurants is processed. I knew that because of years of doing work at some of the places doing service repair work. All of the food was delivered in boxes. In most cases, they take it out of packages, they reheat it, they put it on your plate, and you think you have a custom meal that was designed and made in the back, and it was not. It was processed. And I know with restaurant eating, it's all about flavoring, it's all about taste, and getting the people to come back. So it absolutely has to be the best flavored food. So therefore, when that happens, you're going to use all sorts of animal byproducts. You're also going to be using flavored extracts and textural, I can't think of the term that I'm using, but looking for. But you're using all types of synthetic ingredients because you want this food to taste the best. So I decided to stop eating in restaurants, and that helped to control my diet. And not one time have I gone back to the doctors for the point of checking my cholesterol or checking my blood pressure, because I know where it is, because I know it's gone. As a matter of fact, I had to do a physical, and my blood pressure is still where it was before, incidentally. But I didn't go because I wanted to. I went because the medical establishment says in order to keep your premiums from going high or raising, that I have to get a yearly physical. So I go for that reason, and it's a very interesting visit because it's almost like playing chess, sitting there with my doctor. And that's another story for another time. So anyway, with again, omitting the restaurant eating from my diet, I would only eat foods where I could go to the grocery store, purchase the ingredients, bring it home, and make it myself. And this is the way I have lived. Now, kind of have this cryptic smile on my face because I have changed my diet again, because in realizing that the body is able to repair itself based on, and I realized it wasn't what I was necessarily eating, it was everything that I was leaving out. So in repairing your body as a part of your diet, you kind of want to focus on what can you omit. Now, the biggest thing about diets is that in most cases, people have absolutely no idea where to start. They say, what foods do I eat? Which foods are good? Which foods are bad? How much of this? And the information in the media doesn't help because it's always changing. One year fat is good. The next year fat is bad. We absolutely have no idea. The information is almost deceiving. It contradicts. So, and a good place to start, a good basis for you to start, if you're contemplating changing your diet, if it's not necessarily veganism or vegetarianism, start with figuring out what things can you leave out. The body was initially and only designed, the digestive system, to rid the body of vegetable and or fruit matter. Anything else you're eating, it's going to be a roll of the dice. Now, obviously, every person is different. There are people's bodies where people look like they never gain weight. The food, their body seems to be processing just fine. But those of us, and I consider myself natural, naturally heavy. I still call myself a fat boy, though I've lost a lot of pounds, but I'm still a fat boy at heart because I still have those food cravings. I ate a lot of food. I was a big eater, and it's only that I've changed my lifestyle that I've been able to keep the weight off. But if you are a person whose body is naturally inclined to be heavier, you may want to think about just simply lowering your portions, making your portions smaller. The stomach is a part of the digestive system, and virtually the digestive system is a tube. Your stomach is a bulge in the tube, and it can only hold but so much food. In most cases, that bulge is probably equivalent to the size of your own fist. Now you look at this fist. How much food can you fit in there? Not much. So one of the things that I did when I decided to change my way of life is that I said, okay, not only am I going to change my food, but I'm going to change my portions. I'm going to eat less because that means the less I'm taking in, the better my body is going to work. So I would eat approximately the amount of food that could fit in the palm of my hand, whatever it was. It could be bread. It may have been a slice of toast. It may have been what I call these vegan pockets I used to eat, where it was like baked bread and had broccoli or fruit or what have you stuffed inside. But it was a portion that could fit in the palm of my hand. And that tremendously helped to continue to keep my weight down and also to keep my health, my vitals where they needed to be. And never have I regretted doing this, and never have I ever seen the need to check these vitals to see if they're still where they need to be, because I'm absolutely convinced. You know, one thing about doing something yourself, and I consider using myself as a lab rat. One thing you will see is that when you do something and you see the result, it will be your motivation. It will be your body confirming for you, confirming that you're doing the right thing, that it approves of what you've done. So another change I have made most recently, in realizing that less is best, I had decided to discontinue eating solid foods and take on an all liquid based diet. So I guess now for about 6 going on 7 months, I have discontinued eating solid foods. If I decided to eat solid food, it would be vegan. That would be what I call my cheat day. It would be vegan. But at this point, my intent is not to eat solid food. I will continue to drink my food, as it were, or remain on this liquid diet because I have seen other tremendous benefits from that, and I'm going to share it with you. The one I'm going to share with you, I don't know if it happened right away. It may have been over a period of time that the changes happened, but I just found out that it happened, and it was absolutely blew my mind. It was another stamp of approval from my body that yes, you are doing what we approve. You are helping us. You're staying out of our way. So 6, 7 months now, I've been on a liquid-based diet. There are 3 foods that I've primarily been using, either beans, fresh vegetables, which would include green vegetables, maybe like collard greens, broccoli, green beans, anything green, fresh vegetables. And oftentimes I use potatoes. Potatoes, I really didn't want to use potatoes, but I like the taste of it because I would have to boil them first so that they would soften so that I could puree them. It's pretty tough to do that when they're hard that way, just design a potato. So I would take any of the foods that I just mentioned. I would put them in my blender. I would puree them, down to the consistency of maybe like a sauce. And then at that point, I would add distilled water. I would add water because now I want to thin it out to the consistency of maybe broth or water where I can actually feel like I'm drinking something. So I've been doing that for approximately 6 or 7 months now because my body is now able to continue repairing itself to keep functioning the way it should, and it doesn't have to contend with always consistently trying to process or get rid of solid food. As you could very well guess, the liquid goes right through me. It's being processed very easily. Now, one of the benefits I have seen from that, it appears, in addition to that, as well as everything else I've done, My wife and I had a baby about, she'll be 7 soon. So at the time that we had the baby, we had to go through a fertility clinic to get assistance to do this. So they always do a semen analysis because not only do they check to see if the mother is viable for having a baby or producing or carrying a baby, but they obviously want to make sure the dad is. At the time, in my semen analysis, the sperm count was approximately 3 million, which they said was good. It was great. I felt good. I thought it was great. At the time, I believe I was about 38, 39. So fast forwarding, we're now going through the process again to have another baby. So they had to do another semen analysis. Now, I didn't think for 1 second that anything was wrong with me. I knew everything would be fine. But I did not expect this. They said that my semen count has increased from 3 million to over 6 million. That, once again, gives me the stamp of approval from my body that I have done everything, or I've done everything that I know possible that will continue to help my body to repair itself. Because in some instances, I think a low sperm count is indicative of issues. Whatever the problem may have been, I don't think any doctor would have taken the time to look into it to find out what it is. But since I've changed my diet, this is one of the things, one of the improvements I've seen. And obviously it's going to lead to my wife and I having another baby. But folks, I say that to say, again, that you can repair your own body. All of our bodies have this ability. It's about you making up your mind what you're going to do. And you have to make your mind up and stick to it. My family still teases me. I get ridiculed a bit because my family say, well, you don't eat. And I said, well, no, I don't eat solid food. I drink my food. I drink it because I realize that my body can heal itself without me putting all the garbage back into it. Everything you put into your body, the body has to react to it. You want to give yourself a friendly environment within your body, if that makes sense. The Cheetos, the donuts, the pies, the steaks, the everything that we eat is processed